We've all been there where we were just going to check our phone real quick, right? And 45 minutes later, still scrolling. I'm going to suggest it's infinitely better to spend that time reading and reading almost anything. Now, I'm someone with things I want to get done in life, right? I don't want to just cruise through without making a contribution. But all the contributions that I want to make, they take a lot of time writing books or articles or developing projects. So it can be really frustrating to get caught in this scrolling trance, right? Where we're just caught up in this endless scroll of content. And if we do it too much, there's actually some really harmful effects. When this happens to me, I always think about what I could have done instead. And the list is truly endless, right? But I figure if we have the time to sit around and stare at our phones, then it's likely a pretty good time to grab a great book and spend that time reading. So let's talk about reading over scrolling.
I like the books.
Books, books. I need my book.
Now, the average daily time on the phone, right, is pretty crazy. Studies put it at around 4 to 6 hours a day that we spend on our phones. And some of that, of course, we're using our phones to get tasks done, things that we need to do. But a large majority of that is actually wasteful. Now, that might sound a little crazy to you. You might think, no way you spend that amount of time on your phone, but you might want to check your screen time.
I am hopelessly addicted.
It's a great example of what's known as the aggregation of marginal gains. The aggregation of marginal gains, where you have these little moments here and there, and you kind of add them all up throughout the day, and it adds up to way more than you would ever necessarily expect. And of course, not all scrolling and screen time is created equal. There's value of scrolling through the day's news and sort of checking in on what's going on in the world, or perhaps checking out to see what a family or friend has posted recently. But much of our scrolling is pretty hollow. And again, it's easy to burn a lot of time in the aggregate on these sort of highly palatable and largely meaningless snippets of info or content that just keep on coming. And your next dopamine hit is always just a swipe away. And this can truly go on indefinitely. You couldn't even come close to exhausting the content that's out there. I think it's something like 500 hours of video is added to YouTube every minute, right? So you could watch the rest of your life and you're not even going to come close to exhausting the content that's just on YouTube. And when we get caught in this scrolling trance of meaningless content, I think we just don't feel great from it. You maybe get a little entertainment value from the scrolling, but that's really about it in terms of its positive impact. And again, there are lots of negatives. We haven't really accomplished anything, and that doesn't feel good, but it can also hurt our sleep patterns. And studies have shown that it can hurt our attention spans. When we're used to having content sort of come at us in this rapid fire way, it can even cause stress, right? Because lots of the news of the world or whatever we're getting can be very negative, and that can sort of cause stress in some ways. But there's also that subtle comparison game that we play to these highly edited versions of people that come at us online. And of course, that can add to feelings of depression and perhaps loneliness. The 2024 Oxford Word of the Year was brain rot, right? Which I just think is such a dramatic sounding word.
Brain rot. You have it, I have it.
This is defined as the cognitive effects from the overconsumption of unchallenging and trivial content. It causes brain rot. I think the best analogy here is to think of eating candy.
Good candy, good candy.
This is good candy.
We like candy, but we really only like it in the immediate. It'll taste good. It's highly palatable, right? It might give us a little rush, but then we tend to not like it. We tend to regret it in some ways. And of course, if that's all you eat, you'll be in a lot of trouble. And that's really the point. It's not that we need to throw our phones out of a high-story building. It's just that we need to balance our digital consumption. And reading, I think, is a great balance for our digital lives, especially if you have some time to sit around. Reading, even if it's just fun reading, right, as opposed to challenging or academic reading, or even reading a classic work of fiction that can be pretty complex and pretty challenging, even the mushiest and cheapest of fun books will have layers to it and a storyline that in a way forces our minds to follow along. You are much, much more involved with this activity. You actually have to do something, right, to get to the next part. So while reading can be very entertaining and fun, it will always be more active, a more active experience than just merely scrolling. It's just not all right there. You're looking at a text after all, right? You're looking at words on a page, and your mind has to grasp what's there, interpret it, and then follow the narrative throughout. So with reading, you're always getting a bit of a mental workout. And of course, this leads to greater mental health in the same way that a little physical exercise leads to greater physical health. A little mental workout or exercise leads to greater mental health. So let me give you 4 strategies for reading over scrolling. Number 1, find a book that you'll actually read. Just like a lot of things, we tend to sort of jump into the deep end with reading. I think you just need to dial that back and find something that you'll actually enjoy, that you'll get a lot of value from. This is going to be very different for different people, just what people enjoy or what people are looking for in a book. Some people will like the spy thriller, others will want the love story, and some will like to have something that's a kind of solution to a problem that they have, right? So if they're working on a new project or they're trying to get better at, I don't know, their finances or productivity or their career path, like finding that sort of value can really help you get through the book. If a book solves a problem for you, you're probably going to stick with it. So find a book that you're actually going to read. Strategy number 2 is to set the stage for a good read. So here you want to find a place that's going to work well for your reading. Maybe it's having a certain chair that you like to read in, a certain room, right? Obviously, you want to avoid distractions. Probably not have your phone near you, right? You kind of just want to decrease the friction that gets in the way of getting your reading done. So you want to set the stage or craft the environment that's going to be conducive for a good read. The third strategy is to skip if you need to. Really abandon ship on the book or the chapter, the section if you need to. We've all been there where we're reading through a book and it's just proven to not be useful to us or valuable, or we're just really not enjoying it at all. I say skip, just go to the next book, go to the next section, rather than giving up altogether. C.S. Lewis has said that it is a very silly idea that in reading a book, you must never skip. He says all sensible people skip freely when they come to a chapter which they find is going to be no use to them. Now, what's interesting is C.S. Lewis says this in Mere Christianity, one of his most popular works, and he's about to give a chapter that he thinks you can skip if you don't need it. I find that when I lose interest in a chapter or a section of a book, or maybe a book in general, I'm not really reading it well anyways. It's usually better just to skip it. Now, if it's a book you need to read for class, I'm sorry, you can't skip it, right? But the whole goal here is to develop a habit, develop the reading life. And the goal just is just not quantity. It's really more of consistency. Another quote here by Mortimer Adler, he says, "In the case of good books, the point is not to see how many of them you can get through, but rather how many can get through to you." Mortimer Adler is somebody to be aware of. He's written a book, I've got it right here, How to Read a Book. This was actually written in the 1940s originally, and there's a few editions after that, but you know that because today you would never have a 400-page book telling you how to to read. It'd be much shorter than that, but it's a wonderful book, giving incredibly deep insights of how to read well. So the point is that we're not reading for bragging rights. We're reading to be changed. We're reading to grow and to progress. And fourth and final, I say you should challenge yourself. So yeah, start with the mushy, fun read, the page turner, and then begin to take on more complex books. It could be a book of fiction that's just a more complex book of fiction, but still enjoyable overall, but it's making you work for it a little more, right? And then maybe you work up to something that's very demanding. There are some works of fiction that are very, very demanding, or read something that's more challenging in, say, philosophy or theology. And what you'll find is it gets easier. You're able to stick with the narrative. You're able to stick with whatever the book's about more easily because you've grown in your ability. Mortimer Adler compares it to skiing. He says, reading is like skiing. When done well, when done by an expert, both reading and skiing are graceful, harmonious activities. When done by a beginner, both are awkward, frustrating, and slow. And I have definitely, I don't know about you, but I have definitely experienced the awkward, frustrating, and slow with books. And again, sometimes it's so awkward and slow and frustrating, you just want to abandon ship and go to something easier. But again, you can work your way up to it where it becomes less awkward, less frustrating, and you'd go quicker. I'm a slow reader, but yeah, it does feel like it goes quicker when you're just really enjoying it. And the payoff will be big. I think it will enhance your life in all sorts of ways. And it's certainly a better use of your time than the endless scroll.
That video gave me brain rot.